On Saturday night, my co-host, Danielle Nichols, came up with an interesting theory that I'd just love you to talk to. Maybe it's rubbish, maybe it's got nothing to it. But she said that she thinks one of the reasons why there is so much discontentment in Britain is because the pubs are far too expensive, so people can't go for a pint and go for what effectively is a sort of group therapy session for ordinary people, and are instead sat at home taking drugs and reading Twitter and getting very, very upset. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I think the loss of pubs has been damaging to Britain, but do you think it's been that catastrophic?
I'm not terribly much a pub person, and never really have been. Back in my wicked gay youth, bars, yes, but pubs, not really. I think certainly that what's gone wrong is that people have stopped properly talking to each other. The old vision of the pub was really sort of the heart of the community, wasn't it? It's where everybody got together, high and low, and rubbed along. And we've got fewer and fewer of those things. But I think it's not only pubs. And I think back to the world of my childhood. You know, in a northern town on a council estate, as I keep reminding everybody, my father was a tool maker and I was born in a Pebble Dash semi-detached house.
Oh, come on, if you keep talking about being born in the council estate up north, you'll have to change your name to Darren Grimes.
Indeed, yeah. I've worn
run, Billy, run.
I've worn much better for my age, but anyway. but all sorts of other organisations have gone. If I think back to the world that I was in, that I grew up in, most people had some sort of religious affiliation. Yeah. There were trade unions. There were friendly societies. Again, one of the things that's gone desperately wrong is the way the welfare state has consumed what used to be self-help societies. Yeah. If I look back, I'm sort of doing family history as part of my own autobiography. If I look at the lives of my parents in the 20s and 30s, by today's standards, they were desperately poor, but they were involved in organisation after organisation.
Well, David, I will tell you that when I was a kid, I was baptised in the church attached to primary school. I went to the primary school. I went to the Cubs and the Scouts that were associated with that church. You know, everybody, my mum knew all of the teachers. Well, my mum and dad knew all the teachers. And then there'd be things like the parish hall where they'd have parties and all this sort of thing. And you get the impression that life had been like that in England for quite a significant amount of time.
But why did it come to an end? Was it Thatcher and the end of society? Why did it end?
There's a great deal of it is Thatcher. I mean, there is no doubt. And of course the idiocy of the ruthlessness of Thatcher and the idiocy of the trade unions and the incompetence of so much British history, so much British industry. That destroy the reason the North is a problem. Those northern towns only ever existed. They were all villages until the 18th and 19th century. They are a creation of industrialisation. Industrialisation has gone, and they've left up these washed-up remains.
And they've been cast away, haven't they, and forgotten about?
And also terrible things have been done, especially by their local authorities. When you go back to them, the Telegraph ran a piece on Sunderland. You look at what's left of the high street. There are a few rotting teeth of buildings poking up in this wasteland of car parks and crumbling high-rises. And when I go back to, which I do rarely, to Oldham, where my parents come from, there's a tiny area of the old centre left, and around it is just a wasteland. It's lunar.
Well, Sunderland, Newcastle and Durham have paid the council in Sunderland to take a lot of the immigration out from their cities into theirs.
But you see, you're putting people, the immigrants, who are rootless themselves, into communities, using that dreadful word again, that have lost their heart, their purpose, their structure, their economic function, that are disenchanted with the state. Again, there's an enormous difference between these riots and the last major ones in 2011. 2011, the fundamental origins of them followed the shooting by a policeman of Mark Dugan, who was a criminal, gangster, whatever. But it was essentially shopping with violence There was you were looting buildings and burning buildings, high streets. There wasn't this direct confrontation with the police. Yeah. The thing that I think is really very alarming about these is that it's the direct attack on the state. It's the direct attack on the visible emblem of the state.
Police. But the problem is with policing today. One of the big issues. And I've stolen this from Peter Blexley, so apologies if you've heard it before on the channel. But what the police do is one of two things. The National Crime Agency deal with top-level crime. And then ordinary police, all they do is they do the detective work, which is fun. And they go from domestic violence incidents and violent assault to whatever. You know, the vast majority of us used to see the police for things like car crime, for things like broken into sheds, for things like bike theft, for things like shoplifting. They've given up on all of those crimes now. And so all that happens is the police feel like a regional SS that you only see every now and again. And actually, they're a bit of a problem.
I mean, that is so true. And this is the problem, again, with Keir Starmer. Look at the words he used. A standing army. It is illegal in England to have a standing army. It has been illegal since 1689. And clearly, as a lawyer, even without any history, you really should know that. But this is the problem. We have had policing by consent, the great invention of Robert Peel back in the early 19th century. I think two things died over the weekend, Andre, and I'd be very interested in both of your views on that. One is the idea of policing by consent, unless you are a community. If you are a community, that is to say, you are some form of group of immigrant origin, you will be treated by negotiation with your elders. If you're white British, you won't. And in other words, you have policing by non-consent.
That's been going on years, though. It just crystallised really yesterday.
I think, David, we have to leave it there because we're running out of time. But you asked the question, and here is the answer. There is a feeling, and I think the two-tier policing is the issue here, where people say, I'm being treated to the maximum extent. I mean, what somebody said, you took the knee for Black Lives Matter, you painted your car for gay pride, and you tooled up and put on a helmet for mothers concerned about their children. I think that is the attitude, and rightly or wrongly, that is the way that people feel. Thanks so much to Dr. David Starkey.